Welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in the first trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu. Before I start, remember to get tickets to our last live show in New York for Comic-Con weekend. Links are below. So this movie is the most important film for Lucasfilm since The Force Awakens. It's supposed to lead into an interconnected movie that's going to bring together all the Disney Plus characters and form a team kind of like the Avengers. But this is also the studio taking a huge pivot away from streaming shows to feature films. So if this movie succeeds, we'll probably get a greater integration between the movies and shows with even more Star Wars movies coming. And if it flops, well, maybe they'll stop making Disney Plus Star Wars shows altogether because they're so expensive. So to break down the trailer, first I want to catch you up on where we left off in the series because the last season of The Mandalorian came out almost 3 years ago. So of course you guys remember, this show is about a Mandalorian bounty hunter named Din Djarin who lives in hiding with other Mandalorians in a secret covert. And it takes place about 7 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. So the Mandalorians have been scattered ever since the Galactic Civil War when the Empire razed their homeworld and stole all of their Beskar metal. So Din gets paid a big bounty to capture a cute little Force user, but then he has a change of heart and he and the little guy go on the run. Then he spends all of season 2 trying to return Grogu to the Jedi, and at the end of that season, Luke Skywalker broke our hearts by taking him away. But after a couple of episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, Din and Grogu were reunited. Now, season 3 of The Mandalorian is pretty controversial because it went really deep into Star Wars lore. It connected back to shows like the Clone Wars and Rebels, but also set up this crossover movie I'll be talking about in this video. So in that season, Din redeems himself for removing his helmet in season 2, and then he returns this sacred Mandalorian sword called the Darksaber to Bo-Katan. So Bo is this Mandalorian leader, and she unites the Mandalorians and takes them back to their home planet, where they discover that Moff Gideon from season 1 is using Grogu's blood to create an army of Force-sensitive clones of himself. So they defeat Moff Gideon's, and the Mandalorians rebuild their temple on Mandalore with Bo-Katan as their leader. Meanwhile, Din and Grogu stay together and they get a plot of land on planet Navarro that they can call their own. Din also agrees to exclusively take bounty jobs from the New Republic, so essentially he's a good guy now. Happening in the background all season long, we also saw the rise of the Empire and the heralded return of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Now, did you say right now?
Okay, so here's Thrawn. So on Coruscant, we see that Imperial operatives have obtained high-ranking positions in the New Republic, but we also saw an Imperial Shadow Council that is trying to return a former Imperial named Grand Admiral Thrawn, hoping that he will lead them against the New Republic. Now, Thrawn is a brilliant tactician, the best tactician in Star Wars, and he did return in the show Ahsoka. So I'm telling you all of this so you know that what we see in this movie is going to set up that crossover film that's going to connect characters from this show, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, and maybe Skeleton Crew and more. And this is going to show the New Republic facing off against Thrawn. I bring all of this up because this movie is likely going to be a key building block in the story as all the Star Wars shows build toward this Avengers-like event. Now, let's break down this trailer.
This is where the fun begins.
We open on a shot of the new Razor Crest. Now you'll remember this was Din's classic ship from Mandalorian season 1 that was then destroyed at the end of season 2.
I have dreamed a dream.
In the Book of Boba Fett, Mando was forced to take public transport before finally getting an N1 Naboo starfighter to fix up. Now, that thing is a really cool Easter egg to the Phantom Menace, but doesn't make sense as a ship for a bounty hunter. Plus, the baby seat is separated from outer space by a thin pane of glass. So I'm really glad he got the Razor Crest back. They are flying to the HQ for the Adelphi Rangers. Now this is a group of New Republic fighter pilots who were stationed in the Outer Rim, and they are led by Carson Teva. And actually, we talked to Carson Teva actor Paul Sun-Hyung Lee for our Crossover Universe podcast. Super nice guy. We had a great time. Great podcast too. Links are below.
Oh, hey, are you guys still selling gum?
Actually, no, we despise gum here and we will never sell it.
Oh man, I need that gum real bad. See, I got this bad habit that I'm trying to quit, and well, I gotta try something.
Oh, I see. You're on the gum. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel actually. I have this really bad oral fixation habit because of anxiety. And every time I tried to quit, I would end up doing this weird thing where I'd clench my jaw and I'd squish my face. But like I said, I hate gum, and I found another way to change my habit. In fact, I think you should try this. It's called Fume Zero. So this is a single-use flavored air device with 0 vapor and 0 batteries. It is not a vape, it is something totally different. There's no smoke, no charging, just pure flavored air and a satisfying fidget feel. feel. And get this, it is just $24.99, which is probably a lot cheaper than the bad habit you're trying to change.
Wow, that's a good bargain.
Now this flavor is called Crisp Mint, and it tastes a lot better than the disgusting sugar rubber that you came in here to buy. And it's designed to be simple. Pick it up, draw it in, and taste. No setup, no recharging. See, Fume Zero is perfect for oral fixation, fidgeting, or anxiety, and it has this really fun chewable mouthpiece.
That's my favorite part.
And you can choose from 6 flavors: Crisp Mint, Peach Blush, Raspberry, Mango, Orange Vanilla, Spearmint Ice, and each one delivers more than 10 days of peak flavor. And because it's just $24.99, it's easy to try and see if Fume works for you. Fume has already helped more than 500,000 people make their change, and Zero is their most accessible option yet. So I highly recommend you try Flavored Air as a satisfying, affordable alternative to change your lifestyle. Zero vapor, just natural flavor and a better habit to reach for. You can try it now at tryfume.com/product/fume0 or scan this QR code or click the link below. Now back to what I was saying. So after they land, we see Grogu looking through the spyglass, just like the one that Din used in episode 2 of season 1, which is probably a callback to this one in The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. But see, the editors play a trick on us here, cutting to the view of the stormtroopers through a pair of binoculars, and they're not looking at the same setting because the eyeglass shows 1 circle, not 2. I know this too because look at the facility through the binoculars. It's massive. It's a huge fortress, and the Adelphi Rangers base just has a few hangar bays. Now, it could be that the Imperials have overrun the Adelphi Rangers base, or that it's been overrun by pirates, which could be the main villain of the movie, as I'll talk about in a bit. Now, originally, Lucasfilm was planning a spin-off about the Adelphi Rangers called Rangers of the New Republic, and that was probably going to feature Gina Carano as the lead playing Cara Dune. But then there was this whole controversy around her. I'm not going to go into why she was fired. And then recently, Disney settled a lawsuit with her, and in their statement opened up the possibility that they could work together again. So that show could still be happening. I mean, there were even storylines in The Mandalorian season 3, you know, like that single episode set on Coruscant about Dr. Pershing, and that episode was there to set up the return of Thrawn, and I think that episode might have originally been part of the Rangers of the New Republic, but then they had to shuffle some things around when the show was canceled. Now, like I said, season 3 did also end with Mando agreeing to exclusively work for the New Republic, so here he could also just be landing to get an assignment.
But wait a minute, why is there still stormtroopers? I thought the bad guys got beat in Return of the Jedi.
Well, they did.
Mostly.
See, the Empire was defeated at the Battle of Endor, and their final battle was at the Battle of Jakku. And after that battle, Imperial leadership formally surrendered. However, there are still garrisons of Imperials in the Outer Rim who never surrendered. A few of the remaining high-ranking officers have formed that Shadow Council I talked about earlier, and they are just sitting around and waiting for Thrawn to return and use his tactical brilliance to restore the Empire. However, all of this is also, hopefully, going to show us the rise of the First Order. I really hate how the Empire suddenly just shows up at the start of episode 7 with no explanation. And by the way, speaking of making the sequel trilogy better, we see this guy, the same species of Babu Frick. Remember, these guys are mechanical geniuses who converted the IG assassin droid into a suit of armor for Grogu in season 3. I'm really glad these little guys are playing a part in this movie. And then we see Sigourney Weaver's Republic General sitting at a table in Adelphi Station. Now, she's probably Din's handler and giving him his assignments, as speculated on the great channel Star Wars Explained. In fact, they have a great trailer breakdown on their channel right now that I suggest you watch. Now, side note, Weaver's 80s perm in Ghostbusters did inspire Pelly's look in The Mandalorian season 1. I also think it's likely that the planet would have joined the New Republic by now. Remember, during season 3, when they were attacked by pirates, the New Republic refused to help because Navarro is technically not a member planet. Greef Karga was the person who was holding up them joining the Republic, and now that he's gone, maybe they have fully integrated into the galactic government. Now, real quick, I want to show you guys this brand spanking new shirt at our merch store. It's Jen Urso in the style of the Morton Salk Girl. We also have our Andor classics, I Have Friends Everywhere, and Fight the Empire, and many more Star Wars shirts that we have designed. And you can also buy exclusive merch at our final live show on the tour in New York, Comic-Con weekend, October 10th. We're going to have a night of exclusive breakdowns, special guests, meet and greets, and resolve the story we have been telling all this time at our live show. I love this show. I love getting to meet you guys in person. It's so much fun. Links are below. And then we get footsteps in this puddle reflecting Arabesh signs that give us a clue about what kind of place this is. So this sign reads Thedan Spice. And remember, spice is an illegal drug in Star Wars that is trafficked by gangsters. So any place that advertises it openly is going to be controlled by criminals and scum. Now, with the Empire's presence in the Outer Rim diminishing, it's likely the biggest threat that the Republic is going to face is going to be pirates. In Season 3, we saw pirates attack Navarro and the Republic refused to help, and given all the Hutt teases we see later in this trailer,
It's funny, except it's not.
I wonder if this puddle could be our first live-action look at either Nal Hutta or Nal Sharda. Now, those are the Hutt homeworld and its moon, and they are both massive, dangerous hubs for criminal activity. But Nal Hutta is really like brown and swampy, while Nar Shaddaa, also called the Smuggler's Moon, is more modern, so this is probably Nar Shaddaa. But the Hutts are also on a downswing for reasons I'll explain later. The Arabesh on the left, I think, reads Street Cafe. It's hard to tell because it's obscured. This one in the upper right reads Place Your, and then probably Best. But my favorite is the advertisement here for the Halcyon Star Cruiser that reads, Halcyon, see the galaxy. So the Halcyon was the setting for the infamous Star Wars hotel. And if you have not seen Jenny Nicholson's 3-hour video about it, you are missing out. It's one of my favorite videos on the internet. And then we get some shots of this fight in a bar, which also pulls off some neat little editing trick to fool us. It looks like Mando suddenly has super kicky punchy powers and knocks this guy several feet into the back of the bar. But look, when he does kick this guy, the bar behind him is already broken. So these are shots of two separate things that are spliced together when he's fighting different people in the club. And again, the club looks pretty fancy, like it could be on Nal Hutta. And then Grogu lands on his shoulder. Now, in Season 1 and 2, Grogu couldn't do very much but ride around and look cute.
Like me.
Like you. But then he trained with Luke Skywalker for a few weeks and Luke helped him master things like jumping. So the puppet is no longer limited by his size. In fact, Din even insisted that he train with the other foundlings in combat, and he kicked all their asses at paintball. Now, this alien with the cobra head gripping a gun is probably a Monoman, an Amani headhunter who appeared here in Return of the Jedi. But he was also in the recent Star Wars comics as one of Lando's informants at Jabba's palace. And thanks to Adam Lance Garcia for that Easter egg. And then we see the inside of the new Razor Crest cockpit, so shiny and new compared to the old version. And I'm just so glad they have returned to this ship. Like, it was a devastating shock when the original was destroyed, so bringing it back does kind of undermine that storyline. But then again, Season 2 was about Mando losing everything important to him. He lost Grogu, his ship, his covert. He even lost his honor as a Mandalorian after he removed his mask. And Season 3 was about Din regaining all of that. So it makes sense that in his new life, he would then choose to buy a new Razor Crest. And they don't really make them new, that was wrong. The ship actually predates the Empire, which means that it doesn't have any beacons for the Republic or Imperial forces to detect. So the Razor Crest is being chased by what looks like 2 TIE interceptors. Now, this is a newer version of the TIE ship that was introduced in Return of the Jedi. They are built to be faster and more maneuverable than the TIE fighters we first saw in A New Hope. If the Empire is using these, this could mean that they either have a new TIE factory up and running on the Outer Rim, or these forces just had access to newer ships that weren't deployed in combat during the war. And here Grogu's swimming. I wonder if that's a puppet or CGI. And then we get the Babu Fricks taking him away in their little car. Now, first off, I want this. If this is a toy, I want it now. I want like a little version this big, and I want like a version I want everything, right? Now, this also looks like it's on the lava flats of Navarro. Remember, Din and Grogu settled on a piece of property outside of the main city. So this could mean that he's getting a ride from town to their ranch. But there's also a visual parallel here with Anakin on his speeder in Attack of the Clones, going off to look for his mother. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni love being referential, especially Dave Filoni. So I wonder if Grogu needs a ride here because Din Djarin is missing and Grogu is off to find him. Also, I gotta note, there's a huge potential parallel here between Grogu and Anakin. Now, we've speculated in past videos that the two of them could be a part of a dyad in the Force. After all, they are the exact same name. This could mean that Grogu, like Anakin, was conceived by the midichlorians. And also, like Anakin, he's been tempted by the dark side. We've seen him like Force choke people before, and it's really scary. So if something does happen to Din, this might mean that Grogu has to face his dark side in this movie. And then we see Zeb in a hallway fight. Now, Zeb is one of the Ghost crew in the show Star Wars Rebels. He is one of the last Lassath, a species that was slaughtered by the Empire.
Mostly.
Now, Zeb is now a member of a Delphi squadron, as we saw in Season 3. And I should also say that the show Ahsoka went ahead and gave us appearances from other members of Rebels, including Ezra, Sabine, Chopper, and Hera. So I would be willing to bet that Dave Filoni's big crossover movie is essentially going to reunite the crew from his animated show in a rematch against Thrawn. And this shot is going to be the most controversial one in the trailer. This is Rada the Hutt, voiced by Jeremy Allen White. Yep, that Jeremy Allen White. So Rada is the son of Jabba the Hutt, and he was a central figure in the first Clone Wars movie. When he was a baby, he was kidnapped by Separatists, and then he was returned by Anakin and Ahsoka on like their second mission together. But now, he's all grown up and swole. But here's the thing though, in the comics, it was revealed that all of the other members of the Hutt cartel were slaughtered after The Empire Strikes Back. So Jabba was the only surviving member of the council. So, in Return of the Jedi, this made him the most powerful crime lord, but it also meant that after he died, he had no successor. In The Mandalorian Season 2, we saw that he was replaced by Bib Fortuna before Boba Fett took the chair for himself.
And then did nothing for 7 episodes.
Yeah, that's right. But all this means that little Rada did not go into the family business. He did not inherit his dad's empire. So maybe he's being forced into gladiatorial combat. Or, you never know, maybe this is his joint and he loves fighting people for money. Mando and Grogu are watching the fight, and it looks like Grogu is eating Mantel Mix. So this is the popcorn treat that Omega loved to eat in the Bad Batch, and you can also buy it at Disney theme parks. So this store is being guarded by 2 large battle droids that look similar to binary load lifters. But really, they're not that similar. That's just a technique I use when I don't know something. I'll name something else that I do know, and then I'll distract you with like a really cool theory. For instance, in this scene, did you notice this Hutt cartel symbol on the door? Now, this is huge because it means that they are guarding the store for the Hutts. It could mean that they're protecting a vault, or they're outside of that same gladiator arena. Could also be that they're going to force maybe Grogu to go into a gladiatorial combat fight because he's one of the few Force users left in the galaxy. Also notice that when Din uses his rifle against them, it does like no damage. And in Season 1, we saw that rifle disintegrate a Jawa. And then Din is in gladiatorial combat fighting with what looks like a Mantelian Savrip. That's one of the aliens that we saw in the Dejarik game in A New Hope. So I think this means that the Mandalorian is going to be fighting Jabba the Hutt's son, right? That's going to be super cool. Now this show has done wonders for taking areas of Star Wars that maybe didn't work that well and then making them better. And by the way, that Clone Wars movie is nowhere as good as the series that followed it. So maybe they're going to redeem Rada the Hutt in this film. Now I should also mention that there were twin Hutt crime lords in the Book of Boba Fett. So the Hutts do still have sway in the galaxy, and maybe this movie is going to show us the story of Rada on a story arc to reclaim his dad's throne. And then Grogu shoots a paintball at what I think is a Gundar, you know, the animal that Han mentioned here.
He looks strong enough to pull ears off a Gundar.
And then we see the two of them escaping through the top hatch of an AT-AT. That's the Imperial walkers that we first saw in Empire Strikes Back. And these things may be massive walking tanks, but gosh, are they vulnerable to things like tripping hazards and dudes with jetpacks. And in Star Wars, like every other person's got a jetpack. Notice that when it falls, the hatch on top kind of opens and shuts with the impact. That is a very cool detail. Now, I am looking forward to this movie, and I'm very excited to get Star Wars in theaters again after, oh my gosh, what, 7 years. But I am bummed that Disney seems to have given up on live action shows. Like obviously some of the shows were duds, like Book of Boba Fett, or they were criminally underviewed, like The Acolyte or Skeleton Crew. And frankly, Obi-Wan should have been a movie, not a show. But I love the excitement of making these Mandalorian breakdowns for you guys and getting that weekly Star Wars show. And I am excited to see the storylines in the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka and all these other shows come together in the culmination movie. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully this film represents a new era for Star Wars. But what did you guys think about the trailer? Let me know your thoughts. Well, let's see, down in the comments on our free to join Discord server, which is blowing up today with the trailer. Or you could, go to Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, all the other stuff. I'm on all the stuff. You can find me on the stuff. If your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. We are closing in on 2 million subs and I can't wait. We're going to throw a party and you're invited. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.